So a lot of times we're not actually fully engaged in listening, which is, listening is also the act of being. To be is to be listening, to be totally open, to be totally available. Not to be running everything through one's own filtering mechanism. It took me a long time to discover what listening was. Especially when I would listen to Dharma talks over the years, and generally my mind was listening for valuable pieces of information that it could later utilize. Which isn't to listen much at all, right? What if somebody was telling you something and the only thing you were interested in about what they were telling you was the little nuggets that you could later utilize at some other point in your life? You wouldn't really be listening at all, you see. And yet I had found after a long time that in some way, in a very unconscious way, that this was a large part of how I was listening even when I would hear my teacher speak, you know. But over time I started to realize that that way of listening was extraordinarily limited. It was a great way to make sure that I never understood what my teacher was saying. It's a great way to ensure that you never understand what anybody's saying. It's even a great way to ensure that you don't understand what you're saying. Because we don't even listen to ourselves particularly well. In a certain sense, meditation is the art of listening. That's in essence what meditation is. It is to listen completely. Most of you have heard I won't go over it again, but my basic instruction for meditation, which is simply to allow everything to totally and absolutely be. That is a state of listening. We're not really listening fully until we're allowing everything to totally and absolutely be. It's sort of a foundation of listening. Whether you're listening to a spiritual teacher, or your next door neighbor, or your friend, or your lover, or whatever, until we've allowed everything to be, completely be, then we're not in a state of deep listening. And certainly in spirituality, this becomes even much more important because what's trying to be communicated is something that cannot be communicated simply in the words. Truth can't be put into a formula. Truth can't be just put into words. And so by the very nature of what's trying to be communicated is we're trying to communicate something that can't be put into a nice formulation. And the only way to get at what's being spoken about is to be in a state of listening where you're not listening simply for a nice little coherent formulation of words and concepts. That you kind of get the sense of the thing. Or as I've said before, that your being starts to sort of grok it. You ever heard the word grok? It's a great word. It's kind of to get the complete feel for something. It's almost your body understands something. When you suddenly grok something, it's like, aha, yes. Right? And it's not just an intellect. It is in the intellect, but it's the whole being. It's of the quality almost like of a aha, insight, you know. An insight is something your body does. That's why you go, aha. That's an energy in your body. One component of that is intellectual. And so, as I said, it took me a long time to learn what listening was. But real listening is something we do when we hear a great piece of music. Not necessarily when you go to a rock and roll concert, which I'm not saying isn't great music, but I'm saying it's usually so loud that there's no time to listen. It's sort of forced into your cells more than it is suggested, you know. You go to the symphony and you better, you know, then you're invited to listen, you know. But if you were to listen in the way that you would listen to a math teacher teach, then it wouldn't be very interesting. You have to bring your whole being into the listening, into that kind of listening. All of you has to show up, all it to be completely available. Mm-hmm. Or if you can walk out into nature, and when you're in a deep state of listening, you're actually in a deep state of communion.